welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 111 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 37 of A Clash of Kings. That's Theon 3.
Episode 111. Well, as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll help you, particularly if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good. Actually, there was a very famous cricket umpire who, whenever the score was 3 digits repeated, 111, 222, he would always do a little hop and skip. He didn't like to stand still when the score was on that.
Huh. Interesting. 111. I could see if it was like 666 or something. 111
seems
then too. Fairly innocuous. But I guess some personal issue there. He didn't like 111. Okay, I get it. So, how you doing?
I'm good. I had friends over last night, and before they arrived, Carson said, "Are you going to clean the bathroom?" And I said, "I hadn't planned to." And she said, "Are you okay with your friends knowing you live like that?" I was like,
like what exactly?
Where is this coming from? So I cleaned the bathroom. I got the message.
The whole time you were like, what am I living like?
I know.
I don't know. Oh, man. Well, have you ever had one of those days where you just kind of wish you could go back to bed and start over, or never get out of bed in the first place?
It's every day, Mackelly. It's every day.
Well, I had a weekend filled this past weekend like that. Things just kept going wrong for me. It was one of those like none of them were, well, one of them was slightly major, but most of them were just like little things like went against me. So like Friday evening, it was actually, I was still working, and the internet just went out. So it was like Friday afternoonish. The internet went out.
2 o'clock.
It was, that's not that unusual for the internet to go out. So I went and checked. I tested the router and the modem and all that, and didn't do anything. So I pulled up my app on my phone that was with for my internet provider, and I went through the steps. And I got to the end of all the steps, still nothing was happening, and the app was like, "Yeah, sorry, dude, you're screwed. You're gonna have to have a technician come out." So then it says, gives me a list of times when do I want the technician to come out. The earliest one, this was Friday. The earliest one was Tuesday afternoon. I was like, "What? We can't live without internet until Tuesday afternoon." So I called the internet provider, and I did manage to get someone to come out the next day, so Saturday midday. But you just don't realize how much of your life relies on internet these days. So it's like Friday night, and Stacy and I, we sit down to watch a show and turn on the TV and tried to turn on the stream box, and and she goes, "What are we supposed to do now? Stare at each other?" So, the weekend didn't get off to a great start. And then Molly comes home from her swim meet session, and her ear's hurting. Turns out she's got swimmer's ear, so she has to miss Sunday's swim session. So paid for that for no reason. And then we get a Sunday morning, you and I are recording, and we're having all kinds of technical difficulties.
My God. That was the worst we've ever had.
We had to restart our whole show like 3 different times. And I was like, what is going on? And we finally straighten it out. We go upstairs. We finish. I go upstairs, and the dog wants out on the back deck. So I open the door out onto the screened-in porch. But then I got to open a door in the screened-in porch to let her out onto the back deck. As I'm walking to the second door between the screened-in porch and the deck, my left foot kicks the leg of the chair and totally breaks my second toe next to the pinky, whatever that one's called. And
your ring toe.
My ring toe. And it is black and blue, and the toenail has fallen off, and now like half of my foot is like this bluish color. So,
have you had it x-rayed?
Was that? No, I did. I mean,
You had
there's
it
nothing
x-rayed?
they could do for a broken toe, so I've just been dealing with it.
They
And
can prove it's broken.
well, Stacey keeps saying it's not, and I'm like, look at it.
Exactly. You need photographic evidence.
The toenail is gone. There's no toenail. And the front of it is like a bloody, pulpy mess. Now, normally, I like to do a multimedia thing. Like, we talk about something on the show, and then I put a picture or a link to it on our social medias. I think I'll spare our listeners this one.
I believe you're denying them, not sparing them.
Yeah. And then the Steelers go out and lose. And then after the Steelers lose, so now I'm in a bad mood. My toe's killing me. Now I got to go out and mow the grass in 90-degree heat with a broken toe. And my yard is rather slopey.
Hilly.
So Monday morning when I got to sit down and just go back to work, I was like, oh, thank goodness. No more weekend. I don't want any more weekend.
But then, so the following day was your birthday.
It was, yes.
How was that? Was that improvement?
It's
was
fine.
it better than a broken toe?
I still had the broken toe. It was fine. It was a good day. It's a mid-weekday birthday doesn't exactly lend
During
itself.
a pandemic.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of party-like opportunities, but it was nice. Went out to eat with Ethan and Stacy. Molly had an acting class, so she couldn't partake, but we had a nice time. And, had a delicious cheesecake with caramel, topping on the top of it there that Stacy made me. Homemade. It was delicious. So,
that's nice.
That was nice.
Carson made a cherry cheesecake for the guys who came over last night, and I forgot to share it with them. So I got a huge cheesecake in the fridge.
You've forgotten quotes? I'm not sharing.
Carson is not believing.
Yes, but yeah.
All right, we got a lot. Let's get down to business.
All right.
Oh, happy birthday, since I haven't taught you since your birthday. Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you very much.
To business. Last we saw of Theon Greyjoy, he was being played by his sister Asha, and being given the least important role, harrying some vulnerable fishing towns, in the plan to take the north while Robb Stark is otherwise detained. Asha will take Deepwood Motte, while their uncle Victarion will sail upriver to Moat Cailin. He's beginning to realise, Theon is, that if he hopes to be named Balon's heir, then he'll have to change the Iron Islanders' perception of him. Mackelly, why don't we give him the summary?
I think we can do that. Well, Theon's men have decimated the Wild Hares and captured their leader, Benfred Tallhart. Benfred rages against Theon for his duplicity. He spits in Theon's face. Theon's uncle, Aeron Damphair, can't take this and demands Benfred's death for the insult, even though Theon still has questions to ask. Theon doesn't want to cross Damphair, so he agrees that they sacrifice him to the drowned god, but he's no Ned Stark and leaves it to the others to commit the deed.
As Damphair exits with Benfred, he shoots Theon a contemptuous look. Damphair does. Although I'm sure Benfred was as well, to be honest.
Probably, probably both.
The book mentions Damphair shooting him a contemptuous look. Theon's rather sickened by what they've done here. Murdered hapless villagers, ambushed green soldiers. He felt elated at the Whispering Wood, but this doesn't feel the same. While surveying the carnage, Theon notices a dispute over plunder, the men having paid the iron price for these treasures. One of the contestants, Todrick, is visibly intoxicated. Theon had specifically instituted rules against both being drunk and squabbles over loot.
Thinking to teach the man a lesson, Theon has his squire Wex hand him his bow. His plan is to shoot the man in the hand holding his drinking horn. However, as Theon looses the arrow, Todrick lurches, and the arrow takes him in the gut instead. Reacting quickly to the situation to save face, Theon announces to the stunned onlookers that he'd said no drunkards and no squabbling. Anyone else have a thirst?
Theon thinks back to the battle that just was, if it can be called that. Benfred and his fellow young men took no precautions, sent no scouts, and actually rode into town singing and joking, with rabbit hides tied to lances and standard poles. A rain of arrows quickly turned those songs into screams. As for the villagers themselves, all the men were killed, the young attractive women were raped and claimed as salt wives, the crones were raped and killed or claimed as thralls.
It burns Theon up to think about his sister Asha, who will soon be storming Deepwood Motte. while he's relegated to Reaver's work. It's of her deeds they will write songs. His work will quickly be forgotten. While ruminating on all this, he sees Dagmer Cleftjaw on the prow of his longship Foam Drinker. Dagmer hails Theon and notices that Theon looks awfully miserable for a man who just claimed a resounding victory. And when he asks how many men they lost, Theon responds that their only loss was Todrick, the drunken fool.
Theon tells Dagmer, who he calls uncle despite the lack of familial connection, that they must talk. When the men are settled in Dagmer's cabin aboard Foam Drinker, Theon tells him they didn't take enough horses. Dagmer is confused. All horses are going to do is crap on their decks and take up space. Theon agrees if they sailed. The statement doesn't do much to clear up Dagmer's confusion. He reminds Theon that his Lord Father commanded them to harry the coast. There was no mention of horseback excursions.
Now Theon needs to be careful. He knows he can't hope to accomplish his plan without Dagmer's buy-in. The men wouldn't follow him if both Damphair and Dagmer were against him, and he has no illusions of winning his uncle Aeron Damphair to his cause. After some flattery and ego-stroking, Theon reminds Dagmer how poorly used he is on this menial task. But Dagmer's no dummy. He knows Theon is thinking the same thing about himself. Theon admits he should have been given Asha's role. He's the heir.
Dagmer explains that it's been 10 years since Theon was taken. With both of his older brothers dead, Asha was all Lord Balon had. He grew to depend on her, and she's been up to the task. He advises Theon to give it time, get to know his father again, and when other wars break out, he'll have his opportunity to shine. But for now, stick to the plan.
Not surprisingly, Theon has another idea. He suggests they give 6 ships to Damphair to continue the Reaver's work. Meanwhile, Dagmer will take men to ride to Torrens Square and begin to siege the castle. Theon figures Leopold Tallhart will send a raven to Winterfell for help. He also figures Sir Roger Cassell will dutifully come to the rescue.
I've got to say, if there's a good idea on the table, Theon will have another idea.
Right.
Dagmer isn't impressed. He won't have enough men to siege a castle, let alone defeat the force coming from Winterfell. Besides, laying siege isn't how the Ironborn fight. They fight face to face, not by flinging rocks. It's useless. They can't take Torrens Square. Theon replies with a smile, "It's not Torrens Square I mean to take."
Yep. I wonder what he does mean to take.
I think we know now. I think it's safe to not... I think it's non-spoiler to say if he's luring the last soldiers out of Winterfell, his eyes are on Winterfell.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think that was left to be understood at the end of that.
Yes. Sometimes these chapters finish with something which is a bit cryptic, and this is another example, but I think this time it's clear. I think there have been other times when I've been like, I really don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think this one... I think that it's meant to be understood as we are inferring it here.
Yeah. So the chapter starts with the scene with Benfred, and it's a bit sort of grisly. I mean, Benfred has been a character we've heard about a little bit because he's been gathering these wild hares together to sort of like seemingly to have fun and frolic in the countryside.
Right.
But they were kind of being annoying and a pest to everyone around them. But it turns out, I didn't know this before, I mean, obviously it's mentioned in this chapter, but Theon actually knew him. They'd spent 2 weeks together when a few years ago, when Ned Stark went to Torrens Square. So it makes the whole sort of like torturing him and interrogating him sort of like less pleasant, I would think. I mean, a faceless enemy is one thing, but someone you actually knew is a bit different.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely harder to kill someone that you know versus someone you don't know.
Right. But I will say Benfred probably made it a little bit easier by being the worst captive ever. I mean, just like spitting bile and spit at Theon.
Definitely didn't help matters. In fact, Theon thinks to himself, Tallhart, you've spit your way to your own death. So, yeah.
But I mean, brave of Benfred. I mean, he's obviously a little bit sort of rash, but it certainly, when you've been captured by people who've killed everybody else, you might want to sort of like say, I'm really sorry. Do you need me to send a message to someone?
Yeah, that would have been another way to play it. Definitely.
Right. But he knew what the possible outcome was, but he still gave Theon both barrels.
Yeah, Theon, he refuses to participate in the actual killing of Benfred when Damphair says
Yeah.
no, he needs to be drowned, not beheaded. And there's probably something to do with the fact that they hung around together for 2 weeks. It's also, in some ways, he might be kind of a stand-in for Robb himself. Benfred is the first physical manifestation of the treachery he is in the process of committing.
Right. And he didn't have the guts to do it himself.
Right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. Or maybe not the guts, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not, it's just a matter of him knowing Benfred and feeling bad about it. But yeah, when it came to it, Theon didn't really have the stomach for what he was planning.
Yeah. But this is awfully small potatoes compared to if he has a plan to take Winterfell. I mean,
yes, because there he'll know every single person.
Right, and know them well. Not just spent 2 weeks around them. Spent 10 years around these people. So It's a little bit his reluctance to kill Benfred, or at least participate in Benfred's death, maybe a little bit showing his northerner side here, because the Ironborn seem to have a lot less qualms about killing people that they know. Just ask Todrick. Because when
to be fair to Theon, that was Theon.
Well, Theon did hit him with the arrow, but then as Todrick was dying, he told Fish Whiskers Botley, Fish Whiskers Botley, it was his son that he was squabbling with over the loot, and Theon says, Fish Whiskers, take care of him, and him and his sons quickly go over and just kill Todrick, and then before he's even completely dead, they start stripping him of all his stuff. So, it doesn't seem like they care much about whether they kill people they know or not, I guess.
No, that's true. So Benfred was a bit stupid, I gotta say, having no scouts and, just walking blindly into this deadly trap. But, yeah, I'll give him at least 10 out of 10 for bravery at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
He did not go meekly through the dark veil.
Right. I guess he figured the Ironborn aren't known for their gentle treatment of prisoners, so I'm probably dead one way or the other. I might as well go out letting Theon know how displeased I am with his traitorous act here. But so Theon wanted to ask him a few questions before Damphair insisted that he be killed instead. And of course, Benfred says, it doesn't matter. You could ask me all you want. You weren't getting any answers out of me, traitor. But one thing he wanted to know was about the hair hides. Where did these why the hair hides all over the place? Of course, we know, because Leopold Tallhart told us that these men had been calling themselves the Young Wolves after Robb Stark, and he said, you're more like young hares, and they embraced that, and that's why they became the Wild Hares and have all the hair hides everywhere.
You know what a young wolf would have had? Scouts up ahead.
Yes, might have sent a few. At least one. But these kids, because I think Leopold told us the oldest isn't even 19, so they're all mid-teenagers. They reminded me a bit of Renly's Knights of Summer. They were riding into battle looking for glory with absolutely no comprehension of what battle actually involves, and that you could die a cold-bloody death here.
Yes and no. I mean, and weirdly, sort of contradictorily, yes and no, because on the one hand, they weren't really riding into battle. There was nothing to battle. They're just trotting around the countryside having fun, really. So yes, they are foolish in the same way that the Rainbow Knights. The Rainbow Knights, the Rainbow Guard, have a real aim in mind. Their aim is to put Renly on the throne. So they actually had a genuine plan. But they are also marching into a lot more danger than the Wild Hares thought they were marching into. Now, admittedly,
yes.
The Wild Hares got decimated, but
yes, Theon.
That was a little bit of a surprise.
Lewin and Roderick, last Brand chapter, were talking about how likely these Reavers were just going to flee at the first sign of an armored force. Right. So when Leopold sent them, he probably sent them thinking, this is not a big deal. Give them something to do. They're going to chase these Reavers off. But apparently they weren't up to the task, because they in no way were prepared for this. But then Theon was surprised to find that Benfred was the leader of this host. He killed pretty much everyone else but wanted the leader taken captive for questioning, and he was surprised to find out it was Benfred. But yet, you had to figure there was a pretty good chance that whoever the leader was either going to be someone he knew, or at least someone he knew of.
Right, yeah. And probably knew.
He spent a decade in the north.
Exactly.
With the Lord Paramount.
Right, exactly. We've seen how often people come to Winterfell. It's all the time.
It's not like he was stuck in Bear Island or something. You know, he was in the hub of the north. So anyway, he did allow a few men to flee to bring word back to Torrhen Square. So, you know, I guess
again, going to Benfred, keeping your mouth shut. You know,
right?
I'll back those guys up.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
but there is. You are touching on a point here. There is a danger to Theon of being recognised, and if he's recognised, that upsets the whole plan in many ways.
Right? Because
if it's just sort of like a little bit of reaving and maybe a rogue couple of longships, that's not going to change Robb's thinking. But if Theon Greyjoy is reaving,
exactly, yes, yes, it changes that word. While Theon was with them. Theon, first of all, was supposed to be Robb's right-hand man.
Right.
Why is Theon Greyjoy reaving our coast? That would immediately put people on alarm, a different level than just reavers, random reavers. And then, you get a bird or you get a letter somehow to Robb. Maybe he realizes, oh, Theon has betrayed me. I need to take some action to make sure, Jason Mallister is right there off the coast of, not that far from the Iron Islands.
Of course, maybe by this point, Robb is already suspicious because the plan was for the Ironborn to help them attack the West.
Right. Yes.
Presumably, there's no sign of that.
Yes. We haven't heard from Robb in a long while. So since he sent Theon, I think that was the last we'd heard of him. So we don't know where his mind is. I know he's probably got a lot of other things going on. But yes, you would also think he's wondering, what happened to my buddy Theon? He was supposed to be doing something important.
So most recently we know Robb was at Oxcross, right? It's about halfway to the coast from... It's actually a little bit closer to
it's only 3 days ride from Lannisport. So it's pretty close to the western coast.
Okay. Yeah, so he might have sent scouts on ahead just to see if the Ironborn had arrived, to maybe besiege the big cities of the West.
Yes. Right now is when Robb would be expecting the Ironborn to participate, when they're about to attack the coast, either Casterly Rock or Lannisport.
But I wonder if maybe he intercepted the Stafford Lannister's army further from the coast than he anticipated. I wonder if he was expecting to march all the way to Casterly Rock and Lannisport to find that army, and came across them earlier than anticipated, killed them, and now he's thinking, well, maybe I don't need to go all the way there. Maybe I should turn back and go for Tywin.
Yeah,
but then that does leave his purported allies, the Greyjoys, in the sea doing nothing.
Right, yes.
They can't invade Casterly Rock and Lannisport by themselves.
I wonder which would be more detrimental to Tywin. If he goes forward and takes Lannisport and Casterly Rock, or if he leaves them and turns around and heads back toward Tywin. Anyway.
Yeah, interesting. So Theon sees his men collecting the items from the dead, paying the iron price, as we'd heard before, that his father would approve of. Balon was disgusted by Theon's fine clothing and jewellery, for which he'd paid the gold price, which the Ironborn do not do.
Yes, and he considered, actually, Theon considered finding the men that he knows he killed to pay the iron price and take whatever they had on him. But he said that his thought was that the notion left a bitter taste in his mouth, and he doesn't expound on that, but my interpretation is that he knows this wasn't an honorable battle. He snuck in the middle of the night and decimated a basically helpless village. He's been around Robb and Ned long enough to know this is dishonorable. This was wrong how they handled this.
Yeah, you're right. It's got to be so difficult because I mean, obviously, what the Ironborn do, their main sort of like tactical strategy is this: it's to invade defenseless villages,
right,
and kill the people and steal their belongings.
Yes.
Now, if you grow up in that environment, maybe you get inured to it. But if you grow up with Ned Stark during your formative years, you are going to find that distasteful for sure.
Yeah.
No escaping it. No matter how many times you do it as an adult, you're going to find it distasteful.
Yep. And he actually imagines in his head Ned Stark's reaction to this. We don't get the actual words that he thinks Ned would have to say, but he wonders what Ned's reaction would be. And that thought makes him angry, and he thinks Stark is dead and rotting, and he's not to me. And that's, just like you were saying, there's a battle inside him between the Ironborn way of life and the morals he's been raised with at Winterfell. And, that war inside him, it can't be won because the Ironborn way and the Ned Stark way can never be reconciled to be one person.
But that battle's only going to be intensified as he chooses to turn to, not chooses, but he is part of the Ironborn's attack on the north. So if they were attacking anywhere else, he could perhaps put some of it aside, but he's actually attacking the people who gave him the moral code that he's fighting against.
Yeah. It's, I wonder if he's aware of how traitorous and devious this is to attack his friend. He is... Right. He's not just reaving the coast here. His plan is to take the ancestral home of someone who trusted him as a friend and confidant. So,
do you think perhaps there's a part of him that wants to do that because he will treat the people of Winterfell better than his relatives would?
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. That's a good question. I think that's probably true. But I think Theon is so obsessed with glory and showing up Asha that is his primary reason. But I do think that statement is actually true. He has connections to these people. He knows Micken and Alebelly and Hayhead and Poxy Tim and all these guys.
But you're saying that because his primary driver is glory, he'll wade through their blood to get that glory.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think if he doesn't have to, he won't kill them.
Right.
But I think his primary reason is to take Winterfell to show to his father he's better than his father currently thinks that he is, or more use than his current father thinks he currently is.
I think the other thing that sort of backs up your idea of this sort of like battle between him is how he compares how he's feeling right now to how he felt at the end of the battle in the Whispering Woods.
Right.
Where he felt elation at the end of that battle, even though he'd killed people and he'd had some near-death experiences. Right. He felt great elation at the end of that battle because it was nobly fought and the forces of right won it and everybody involved was a willing participant to a certain extent. It basically exactly the kind of battle Ned Stark would have approved of. Yes,
absolutely. Whereas here, there's nothing to be elated about. It wasn't any of the things you just said. It was a massacre of a group of teenagers who didn't really even know what they were doing. They couldn't put up a fight, totally unprepared for what they were getting into, and they destroyed a sleeping village. I mean, there's nothing to be elated about if you're coming from Theon's perspective of only wanting glory. If you're the other members of his host and you're just in it for the paying the treasures, the loot that you're going to get,
and the treasure,
maybe you could be elated about it, but not. This is nothing what he's looking for. He knows there's absolutely no glory to be found here, and he's so much obsessed with finding glory that he wouldn't even allow Dagmer Cleftjaw to participate. He made him stay back at the ships because he was afraid even this would be considered Dagmer's victory.
Right, but I wonder if he realized how hollow the victory was going to feel anyway.
True,
because honestly, in advance of this battle, I would have known how this was going to feel. I mean, A, I'd be a little bit scared I'd get killed, but B, I'd be pretty confident that it was going to be a slaughter by my team.
Right.
And
yes.
I would imagine that's going to feel pretty hollow because they're defenseless villagers.
Yeah.
I might have gone the opposite way. Here, Dagmer, knock yourself out.
I'm going to stay back. You go take this victory. Yeah.
So Theon shows off his archery skills again and accidentally kills his own man. Thinking back to when he rescued Bran from the wildlings, can we just say, phew?
Yeah, and the irony that he totally fails to recognize is in this same chapter, just after he does that, he gets irked thinking about the fact that Robb didn't praise him for killing Stiv, who was the guy that had Bran, and scolded him instead, totally failing to make the connection of, I just fired that arrow expecting to hit a guy's hand and I killed him.
Had Robb been there to witness this, all Robb would have said was, see? See?
I told you so.
That's why I was mad.
Yeah, he seemed oddly more okay with killing this Todrick who's one of his own Ironborn than he did about the prospects of killing Benfred. So, anyway. But he thinks that there's no doubt that Asha will get her castle in Deepwood Motte. That's phase 2 of this whole plan. And the reason he thinks that there's no way that she could fail is because Balon hasn't let any word slip of him hosting, of him calling his banners. And I wondered if maybe Jason Mallister, who's the closest major house to the Iron Islands, should be keeping an eye on the Ironborn and making sure that the mainland, the North, is aware when they do such things.
Yeah. I mean, thinking back on it, the day Theon left the camp in the Westerlands or the Riverlands to head to Pike, Ravens should have gone north to say, fortify the defenses.
Right. Just in case. You would think that maybe Kat, who was totally against the idea of Theon being this envoy, might have at least said, just at least send some ravens north saying, hey, keep an eye out for any Ironborn activity. But we know that Theon traveled with Jason and Patrick Mallister when he left to go on this journey. So they're home.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the most interesting part of this chapter for me is this relationship between Theon and Dagmer. Dagmer is the master of arms to House Greyjoy, so that's the equivalent of Sir Roderick Castle. He's known Theon since birth, and basically is the first Iron Islander to show Theon the least bit of affection since he came back, as far as I can see.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and he calls him uncle, like you mentioned in the summary, even though he's not an uncle, but he calls him an uncle because, like you also said in the summary, Dagmer has known him his whole life. He's been part of his. He was the one that did a lot of his training, and first one to put a sword in his hand, and he thinks he calls him an uncle, even though he has no blood connection. And he said, well, there might be some Greyjoy blood 5 lives back, but from the wrong side of the blanket, and that term is a euphemism for being bastard born. So.
Yes.
Just in case you were wondering what that term meant.
So Dagmer tries to placate Theon's concerns about his position in the hierarchy. While Theon was gone, Balon relied on Asher. He doesn't know Theon anymore. It's going to take time. It's not very different from what Asher was telling him, but it's much more direct sort of advice. It's like, you bide your time. it's not like Balon's never going to make you his heir. It's just today you're not Balon's heir.
Right.
There's no way he's going to make you the heir until he knows he can trust you.
Yeah.
And honestly, again, thinking back to Theon and his glory seeking, I'm not sure the right way to Balon's heart is to take Winterfell.
I agree.
I think the way to Balon's heart is to do what you're told.
Do what you're told. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He says, Dagmer says to him, Asha's never failed your father. And Theon says, nor did I. The Starks knew my worth. So he's kind of talking in circles here. He says he's no Stark, and that Dagmer gave him more smiles than Ned Stark, but yet his example of his worth is to cite the Starks' feelings about him.
I think you might be misunderstanding what that means, actually, because I don't think it's the Starks knew that he was a good and honourable person. It's the Starks knew what he was worth to the Greyjoys.
You think that's what he meant?
I think that's what he meant. I thought he meant... That's what I understood that to mean. That it was more a matter of the Starks knew that I represented...
maybe.
The Greyjoys' compliance.
Yeah. He followed it up with examples of, like, I was handpicked by Brendan Tully to be one of the advanced scouts, and I was in the Whispering Wood. I came 2 feet from fighting Jaime.
Huh. Well, maybe I misunderstood it. I thought he was just expanding on his achievements, despite the fact he was a hostage. But maybe you're right. Maybe that is what he meant all along.
Well, maybe he meant both, because both are kind of true. But he mentions coming within 2 feet of fighting Jaime, the Kingslayer as he calls him. But then Darren Hornwood got between them and died for it. And I thought, what if Darren Hornwood hadn't gotten between them? Imagine how different things would be if it was Theon that died fighting Jaime, because that's likely what would have happened, and not right. Darren. So, Danella Hornwood would likely still be alive because there'd be an heir, so there'd be no reason to do what the Bolton bastard did to her. And Robb might have sent someone more trustworthy to treat with Balon. And then
it's a sliding doors moment. That's a big shift in the storyline.
Right.
The story would have gone a very different way.
Yeah.
If these two had exchanged lives.
I even thought if Robb had sent someone other than Theon, like Cat wanted him to, that maybe that person might have been held captive or killed, because Balon was already calling his banners when Theon pulled into port. So he was already in the process of, gathering his forces to attack the now empty north. So.
Right. But of course, if they'd sent someone else, maybe Greyjoy would have done what he was asked.
Maybe, because he still has Theon, although, as we've seen, at the moment, he's not the biggest fan.
But the other thing I would have done, even with Theon, I would have sent Theon with 2 ravens. One raven he lets fly from 100 yards before he docks at Pike. He lets fly to say, "I'm arriving in Pike." And then if the next raven doesn't arrive within 3 days saying, "Yep, we're on our way," then I fortify the north against them.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
And that there would be a secret word in that second one that only the messenger knew. And if that secret word was missing, then they fortified the north.
Yeah, that might have done the trick.
So Dagmer, unlike everybody else, manages to actually say a nice thing about Theon. He says, "I know you're no craven," which is the nicest words Theon has heard since the boat.
It really is.
Aside from daughter,
the few things that Asha said when she was pretending to be.
Yes. All right. It's the first time someone said something honestly to him that was nice.
Yeah.
So Theon's got this plan. He knows he can't do it alone. I think he does play his hand pretty well here with Dagmer.
He does. I agree.
Sends Damphair away to deal with Benfred, so gets him out of the picture. And then he doesn't immediately say, "So here's my plan." Instead, he sort of courts him with a little bit of flattery first, trying to make the older man recognise the insult as being an insult to both of them.
Right.
Which Dagmer does not see. Dagmer sees it as an insult to Theon, for sure.
Right.
But he sees his role as, you're there to keep an eye on Theon.
Yes, I think his role was probably, don't let Theon do anything stupid. We don't know him, we don't trust him.
Right, exactly. Don't let him sail off back and tell Robb what we're up to, you know.
Right. Or don't let him go half-cocked on some harebrained scheme. Oh, shoot.
Right. But actually, now I've said that, that's made me think. I wonder if Dagmer will say, why is he so keen to get back to Winterfell? Is he trying to turn coat?
Oh. Yeah, you could have that thought possibly if you were Dagmer.
Yeah, especially if Dagmer's been told, you're there to keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't do anything stupid, make sure he doesn't betray us, and make sure he sticks to the plan.
Right.
You'd be like, well, I feel like he's breaking at least 2 of those at this point.
Yeah, you might want to mention that. Yeah. So this goes back to what you said earlier, that you don't think his dad'll praise him for taking Winterfell. He thinks that Theon is gonna hand his father the kingdom, and that his father will be that they'll write thousands of songs about them and everything. And I just wonder, will he? First of all, it's he's going directly against his father's command. You know, he has a task. He's absolutely violating it. I don't know that that's something Balon would smile upon. But secondly, the plan is based on his knowledge of the North and Northmen. And that's exactly the thing that Balon dislikes right now, is the fact that he's not sure if Theon is Ironborn or is actually a wolf in Kraken clothing.
But you'd hope, Theon would hope that Balon wouldn't blame him for using his knowledge of the North against the North. You'd be betraying the Ironborn if you didn't, you know. If you said, oh, I don't know what they'll do, you know, you'd actually be protecting the North.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that makes some sense.
Except Theon is doing it for himself, not for the greater good of the...
Well, true. He is looking for personal glory. But yeah, you make some sense there. I wonder if... it seems like Balon is looking for any reason to believe that Theon is still a wolf.
Absolutely. And that's Theon's problem, because on the one hand, if he does exactly what he's told, eventually he'll get back to where he wants to be. But he thinks, if I could just do one big thing, I could get back to where I want to be. And so Dagmer keeps arguing for the former, but Theon just wants to race for the latter.
Yeah.
So Dagmer initially resistant to what Theon's saying, but Theon knows Dagmer too, and he knows that he loves songs that are sung of the time he earned his last name. He's called Dagmer Cleftjaw. He was hit in the jaw by an axe, and he's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, he's got 4 lips instead of 2, by the way the axe hit him, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Theon lures Dagmer with promises of new songs of their exploits if he'll just come with Theon and leave the pointless reaving to Aeron.
Yeah, he does a decent job of buttering him up. Some of the things he says is, no man on the Iron Islands is so skilled with the spear and sword. And then, this is no work for Lord Balon's best man. And that I mean to do a deed that the harpers will sing for 1,000 years, which... You know, as you just said, he likes, Dagmer likes the songs about him, especially the one about how he got his cleft jaw. And then, finally, when he learns of one of the king's bannermen is under attack by the fearsome Dagmer Cleftjaw, he's referring to Roderick Cassel, he'll summon his strength and ride to Tallhart's aid. Which I wondered, I was actually thinking about it this morning. I wonder if Roderick Cassel would have any idea who Dagmer Cleftjaw is. I wonder if his name does precede him or if he's just flattering him here.
So Dagmer tries not to give himself away and actually commit, and Theon cannot quite tell if the look in his eyes is interest or disapproval, but Dagmer continues to listen, so Theon slowly unveils his plan. They'll head to Torrhen Square, which is now surely barely defended, and lay siege. Dagmer doesn't like the sound of that. They don't have enough men, and it's not their style. But Theon really just wants to draw Sir Roderick away from Winterfell. So we therefore assume that that's the real target.
Right.
Is Winterfell.
Yeah.
Which is already scantily defended, and if Roderick Cassell and his men ride out, even less so.
Yeah, but it's such a Theon-like plan. I mean, if it goes exactly as he draws it up, it might work out, but it's just he's assuming that everything will go as planned. What happens if Roderick doesn't bring his whole force? What if he's smart enough to say, well, I can't just leave Winterfell completely undefended? Or what if he sends some other house? You know, what if he sends the Umbers or something to Torrhen Square to take care of it and doesn't himself leave Winterfell at all? So,
yeah.
But it's also just, it's just like it's the epitome of he doesn't want to work his way up, like you were saying earlier. He wants one big win for Mac's glory to replace Asha as the heir. He doesn't want to put in the time and the effort. He wants the big home run.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah. All right, so that's it. So what about some background?
So Theon and company are raiding the villages along the Stony Shore, and that's the name for the section of the western coast of the north. It's southwest of the Wolf's Wood and Sea Dragon Point, which is kind of up where Asha is, and is northwest of the Rills. And it's separated from the Rills by a river that we actually haven't gotten a name for yet in any... Not even Land of Ice and Fire has this river named, so maybe someday we'll find out. But anyway, after the long night...
It's in the north. They just call it river.
Right. It's probably frozen half the time anyway. After the long night, House Fisher ruled the Stony Shore as First Men Kings. However, eventually they bent a knee to the Starks and became their vassal lords. Now there's absolutely no mention of whether House Fisher still exists or if it's become extinct. You'd think if it still existed, we would probably know about it. Yeah. So, but many years later, Herrig Hor, the then king of the Iron Islands, sailed a fleet of longships to the Stony Shore. And after conquering the Stony Shore, Herrig burned swaths of the Wolf's Wood, and Bear Island eventually became a base for reaving for his son Ravos the Raper. That's a great moniker there. Now, all this happened, well, this part with Herrig and Ravos, happened during the reign of Theon Stark, who was known as the Hungry Wolf because the North was constantly involved in war during his reign. Actually, Bran mentioned him when he was in the Crypts, that one chapter. Eventually, though, Theon Stark, not Theon Greyjoy, Theon Stark killed Ravos in one-on-one combat and booted the Ironborn from the northern shores.
Huh. So this has got historical precedent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Attacking. You'd think that'd be a good place to start. If you're going to attack the north, you'd start on the western shore if you're coming from the Iron Islands.
Especially if you're coming from the Iron Islands.
Yes.
But sailing all the way around the continent would have the element of surprise.
It would. So. They wouldn't have seen that one coming.
Take you 7 months, but... all right. Comparison with the television show. Theon's refusal to be the executioner is pushed to a later scene in the show, which I won't mention because it's a spoiler. Dagmer is portrayed as someone younger and less affiliated with the Greyjoys, more just a sort of like a random longboat captain. Not someone sent to look after Theon.
Not an uncle.
Aeron is not an uncle. Aeron is not part of this party. We did see Aeron on Pike, but we do not see him. He's not part of this.
Okay.
We don't see any of this, in fact. None of this actually happens in the show. But Theon's plan is revealed in the show by Sir Roderick announcing in Winterfell to Bran that Torrhen Square is under siege. So, slight spoiler alert, Dagmar says yes to this plan. Bran agrees to sending 200 men with Sir Roderick to break the siege at Torrhen Square, which does to Winterfell rather what Benfred's Wild Hares did to Torrhen Square, leaves them horribly undefended.
Bereft of men
the Starks,
to defend it.
But But what's interesting about that scene with Sir Roderick and Bran is that they assume it's Lannister men. It doesn't occur to them that it's the Ironborn, that it's the Greyjoys. They think it's Lannister men.
Huh.
So, and then sort of just for the connective tissue of the show, the very next scene is where Bran confides in Osha, not Asher, Osha,
Right.
that he dreamed of the sea coming to Winterfell, which we mentioned in the last Bran chapter.
Right.
So there's a connection there between news of the siege of Torrance Square has arrived at Winterfell. Bran had a dream about the sea coming to Winterfell.
So they gave Bran a dream instead of Jojen in the show.
I mentioned that when we talked about that.
Oh,
that dream was put into Bran
Yeah.
because the Reeds haven't joined the show yet. So some of the things that Bran and Jojen talk about are just given to Bran in his dreams.
Okay. All right. Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll say about that is, had Sir Roderick's intelligence been a bit more accurate, i.e. they're not Lannister men, they are not flying lion banners,
Right.
they look like Greyjoys. The interpretation of Bran's dream might have been a lot easier.
Yes. Right. And maybe they would not have sent 200 men out of the already very emptied out
Right.
castle, which is
Right.
the heart of the North.
Right. Pedantry, I don't have a lot of pedantry, but I have to say, it is weird to me, the thought of capturing and transporting a horse on a longship. Was it Dagmer who said he didn't want them?
Yes, he's like, what are we going to do with those?
Right, but it's like, why would you ever want one? I mean, especially if you're not going home. If you're going home, maybe you take a horse with you because then you can ride around. But the thing is, the Iron Islands are kind of small. You can't really ride around them anyway. They're rocky and stony. And
Right.
the one horse we know about in the Iron Islands was captured by some other guy, and he sold it to Theon because he couldn't even control it because they don't know how to ride.
That's a solid point. Yeah, I thought about when he was complaining that they didn't take enough horses during the little so-called battle with the Wild Hares. I thought, if it was horses that he wanted, he might have wanted to come up with a different plan than raining arrows down on the Wild Hares, because arrows can't be told, don't hit the horse.
Right. You can tell them.
Right.
They're not going to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
News and notes.
News and notes. Well, it wasn't only my birthday this week. It was also George Martin's 73rd birthday.
You two are twins. I didn't realize.
Pretty close, yeah. Close in age, too. He turned 73. I turned... No, not quite yet. Not quite.
Yeah.
I'm gaining on him, though, I think. And as a present to us all, he's releasing Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring next month. No, I'm joking. Of course, that is entirely false. Who knows when we'll see those. I was hoping that might be a birthday present from him to the rest of us, but no. And do you want to do the other news? Or
I'll do the other news, yeah. I mean, it's your news, but I'm fascinated by it. So, fans of the show will be happy to hear that Gwendolyn Christie, who played Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones, is going to be part of an upcoming show based on the Addams family. The show is called Wednesday and focuses on Wednesday Addams' school years. Christie will play Larissa Weems, the principal of Wednesday's school, Nevermore Academy. It seems that Wednesday's mother Morticia and Larissa are old acquaintances, and Larissa still holds a grudge against Morticia, who will be played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh, that sounds interesting.
yeah, could be good. We'll find out, I guess. And we got a really nice review from Blake. This is from podchaser.com. And it goes like this. Just finished episode 48, chapter 49. And finally motivated enough to voice my opinion. And here's said opinion. Great podcast. Simon and Mackelly have great chemistry. I listened to this on my walks, and now I want to take more walks.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
we're
We're getting people fit.
We're helping Blake stay healthy with our chemistry. Maybe people are just referencing to the fact that you have a PhD in chemistry. Maybe that's what they mean
Maybe
by
that's it. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Blake. That was a really wonderful
What's your
review.
degree in? What's your degree in?
Journalism.
Communication? Journalism, that's right.
Yes.
Maybe that's what they should say. They have great chemistry and journalism.
I don't have a PhD in it, though. Just a lowly bachelor's degree, so there's no point in even mentioning it, I guess.
Did I tell you that I had a conference call with a senior person the other day, and he asked me to introduce myself and tell him something unusual about me. And we were the meeting was about ego. The meeting was literally about ego. And so I said to him, did I tell you this already? He said, so to introduce yourself and then tell me something about you. And so I introduced myself, told him what I did at the company, and I said, I'll tell you two things about me. I said, not many people know that I have a PhD in theoretical chemistry. And I said, and my ego is about a 6 out of 10.
And Joan went, 6.
Well, he laughed, and I said, well, to be honest, 6 out of 10 is an average. It sort of fluctuates between sort of, rampant egotism and self-deprecation. It averages to a 6. All right, let's draw this one to a conclusion.
All right.
Not like I'm cheering for Theon or anything, but that's a slightly better performance by him in the last few chapters. A little bit of mercy.
Yeah.
Tiny bit.
Yeah.
A tiny bit of leadership.
Little bit, yeah.
Some of it accidental, killing people he didn't mean to.
Yeah. His plan is decent. If everything goes as he hopes, it might work. But
well, TV show, it's going just to plan, exactly to plan.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess so.
If the book follows the TV show, he's doing great.
They're like, hey, there's someone attacking Torrhen Square. I know. Let's empty out every man left in Winterfell and ride out to defend it.
Mm-hmm. And he's also getting a tiny bit of support and positive reinforcement from Dagmer, who didn't seem like he was going to be that kind of avuncular figure in Theon's life. It seemed like, and in actual fact, the Dagmer equivalent in the TV show is very frosty to Theon the whole time. He doesn't give him any warmth, really.
I like the warmer, more uncle-ish type Dagmer. I like to get someone being on Theon's side, someone trying to guide him without doing it the way an older sister would do, which is in a mocking, teasing, tormenting way. But Theon, he's just not Ironborn, at least just not yet. He doesn't believe in the things the Ironborn hold sacred, like the drowned god, paying the iron price, doing things the old way. They get into a debate about doing things the old way, him and Dagmer in this chapter. And it feels like he's just trying to cram himself into this role that he wasn't raised to be this way.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about that, though, you can think of the Iron Price on two different levels. Yeah, he doesn't want to go kill someone and cut the ring off their finger. But he'd be very happy to become Lord of Winterfell and reap the riches of the North.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is also the Iron Price. You took it by force and you lined your pockets.
That's a good point. He's taken he's taking Robb's entire kingdom by paying the Iron Price. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but yeah, you're right.
But maybe it comes down to exactly what you've been saying. He doesn't want to take the steps to get from where he is to where he wants to be. He wants to take a big leap to that. The steps would involve getting your hands dirty and actually
paying an iron price.
Price in the way the Ironborn mean it.
Yeah, he's really, you can see that he's stuck between these two worlds. He says he's no Stark, but clearly he's not yet fit for Ironborn life. So, and the fact that Ned's opinion that is that voice in his head, his conscience is Ned's voice, and he thinks about how Ned would react to this. It just shows you where he is mentally. He wants to be Ironborn. He wants to be Balon's heir, but he's just not there, at least not yet. And it makes sense. He spent birth through 10 with the Ironborn and 10 through 20 with the Starks. So he's a split person at this point, And his more formative years would be that 10 through 20, you would think.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you got to think, if that happens to you in your life, you barely remember the first half of it because it's such a transition.
Right.
You have images of the earlier part of your life, but they would be isolated and be hard to associate them with yourself,
Yeah.
So Jojen's dream of the sea coming to Winterfell may be literal, well, figuratively literal, in that Theon has designs to take it. He couldn't kill Benfred himself. And so you pose this question: how is he going to handle facing the people of Winterfell, who he knows a lot better?
Right. Yes. Exactly. I guess maybe this was he'll get more brazen and callous about it as time goes on, possibly. But this first time, didn't go so well, and this is small potatoes compared to what he's about to face. And like I said, the plan requires everything to go. If Roderick doesn't react the way he figures Roderick reacts, then none of it comes to pass, because they could keep. Winterfell is fortified enough that they can, with the men they have, they can defend it against the small force that Theon would bring there. So,
yeah, the one thing I'll say about Winterfell though is that it is very big. It is a very big footprint, and with a thin force, you can't man every wall of Winterfell.
Well, that's
maybe
true.
The walls are high and strong enough to keep out a small raiding force, but it's vulnerable when it's short of men, for sure.
That's true. You could sneak in some unmanned section, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I guess we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah. Well, as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at ghostsharrenhall. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
And if you'd please go out and leave us a 5-star rate, that would mean so much to us. And if you do, just like Blake did, and leave us a great rate and review, we certainly will read your review on the air sometime.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.